Welcome today to the Learning House. I'm Corey, and I'm here today with Colin and Harmen from Classroom Ready. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today to share about your resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could start, tell me what is Classroom Ready and what kind of resources you provide.
So Classroom Ready, Canadian publisher, publishing, amongst other things, math for every province, as many of you will know, or as you will know, Corey.
Yeah.
Each province has a different curriculum. And so we cover grades 3 to 12 for each province and territory, so that in each province and territory, students and parents can be assured that they're learning in the order that the Ministry of Education has prescribed for that province. We also publish math videos. We also publish some Indigenous truth and reconciliation resources.
And we're going to chat a little bit more about these. I really appreciate the input that you've given us as well on this, and the resources that you've created there. So let's talk a little bit more about how you've created these and how they serve the homeschooling community. Knowing that they are provincially aligned, many of the resources that we have are American created resources, and so they don't specifically align with provincial standards. Tell me how this helps our homeschooling families.
Well, for starters, it is, as you said, Corey, it is 100% curriculum aligned. So at each grade level of grades 3, 4, 5, and upwards through grade 12, every curriculum outcome in every province is actually covered off. And it's covered off with clear, concise, straightforward examples that explain the mathematics to a student and to a parent, to both. And there's a number of exercises that go along with that in order for students to be able to have ample practice to understand that they've got that concept that is trying to be taught. And those questions at the end, after the examples, go from a nice, simple, straightforward, basic level that starts to build confidence for the student through to a deeper understanding at the end, even through things called extra for experts and exciting extras that dive deeper into the mathematics at hand. But you will see throughout here that the questions would just go nice and gently as they move from very simple into a lot more difficult, and help prepare students for the rigors of the next grade level to come.
Great, thank you. Knowing that they're aligned to provincial standards, and I like that building, we know that often families need something that has more depth, and that they can go deeper and have more practice for their students. And other families can say, we don't need as many questions. So you've got that variety of the ability to dig deeper if families need that. But having a provincially aligned curriculum is helpful for many families. Well, not all families need that. It does help, especially in those upper years. We find that in grade 9, 10, 11, American curriculums are ordered differently. And so if we have students that have been traditionally schooled and they've been in the public school system and they're switching to a homeschooled material, oftentimes a provincially aligned curriculum is most appropriate for them because it aligns with what they have been looking at previously. So thank you for doing that. In terms of these other resources that we have as well, your Indigenous studies books, could you tell me a little bit about those, Harmen?
Yeah, so a number of years ago, we were approached by an Indigenous education coordinator, who's actually somebody I knew from a previous career, who asked that because there's a general lack of a comprehensive Indigenous truth and reconciliation education resource. There's a lot of bits and pieces, but nothing that quite comprehensively covers the whole subject matter as prescribed, if you will, by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So if you don't know what that is, it was a number, I think the number is 92 suggestions, if you will, on how Canadians could work on truth and reconciliation, and 7 of those 92 were directed at educators. And so as a result, throughout our resource, we built on those 7 recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that include, teaching kids about the history of Indigenous peoples in Canada, teaching them about the different treaties that exist throughout the land, teaching them about the history and the some of the traumatic experiences that Indigenous families and kids had in residential schools. And then also it highlights throughout one of the units some of the days that are set aside for recognizing and celebrating Indigenous culture.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and if I may jump on top of
Please.
that, Harmen, as well, but these are written, there's two different books, and one is written at a grades 5 to 8 level, and the other one is written at a grades 9 to 12. 5
7.
to 7, sorry, and a
Yeah.
grades 8 to 12 grade level, and they're written for that appropriate reader.
Right.
So that appropriate students. So when we're talking about some of the recommendations in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we're presenting the stories at a level that a student in grade 5 can deal with and understand, and then critically think about ways in which they can start helping towards reconciliation based on the truth that is presented in some of these stories.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, and you'll note as you're paging through the book, Corey, that
Mhm.
you know, the fact that it is strictly written by Indigenous authors. In fact,
Mhm.
I've personally met 3 of them, and
Mhm.
so that we have 4 individual authors, and then we have 4 institutional writers. So Indigenous
Right.
institutions like the Moose Hide Campaign, Orange
Yeah.
Shirt Society, that all contributed.
Mhm.
And then, you know, we had an Indigenous professor actually edit the book and ensure
Mhm.
that the content is legitimate, and that we're kind of meeting the standard for any Indigenous resource, is that it should be as told through the perspective of the Indigenous author.
I really appreciate that very multifaceted look at this, and that you have included us here. Louise
Mhm.
House was one of your reviewers, and that really made an impact on us to know that we could look at this and see how appropriate it was for home educating families. And these are really tough topics, but they're also some really beautiful topics that we
For
need
sure.
to approach and look at the beauty of history and culture and art and language that we might not have been traditionally exposed to, but also to look at some of the hard truths that
Mhm.
come out of those truth and reconciliation recommendations. We've talked about this briefly before we were on camera, gentlemen, but just the need to balance that truth in the beauty and the ugliness with
Yes.
age appropriate content, to recognize for us, for our audience, that we are working with Christian homeschooling families predominantly, though we're working with families of all different backgrounds, and that we really value that this is written by Indigenous authors, but we also value as Christians this balance of grace and truth. Like, we want
Yes.
to think critically and think about truth and true things, but also think about the redeeming parts. How do we work with the ugly and redeem it and seek that truth? And I really appreciate the perspective that you guys have infused in your passion for creating this and working with the appropriate people to make sure that's available. Is that a good way to sum that up?
Yeah, for sure. And as you mentioned in our brief discussion prior to recording, you know, we talked about the fact that the senator in charge of the Canadian Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Murray Sinclair, actually said that education got us into this mess, and education will also get us out. So really the purpose of the book was not to answer all the questions, but really just to elevate the understanding and the education for the average student and the average family, for that matter. And you know, if you leave all the other noise out, just the
Mm-hmm.
history and the facts, that's what those books represent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What a really powerful sentiment. That's just going to sort of echo in my brain for a while, that education got us into this, and education really has to be a way to walk out of this.
Yeah, it's really hard to reconcile when you don't have basic knowledge, right? So
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think I think, as you
which
said,
I didn't
with
have growing up, and I didn't have that sensitivity that I need.
exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
no,
And the
within the
exposure to
Christian,
the beauty as well as to the pain.
for sure, as you said, within the Christian community, particularly, I think, you know, we want to understand and
Mhm.
then, you know, go from there. And I think that these books really help through the stories, through the questions, and through it actually encourages critical thinking. And what better way to reach understanding or elevate your knowledge than through critically thinking about, as you said, not only the hard, ugly truth of what happened, but also the beauty of the culture that exists in Canada.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. So
And,
good.
and if I may add just one
Please.
thing there, that in speaking with friends of mine in the First Nations communities, they recognize that nobody reading this or nobody listening to this video actually caused this. didn't cause this problem. It was caused generations ago. First catalyst was probably 7 generations ago to cause what is here today. But everybody listening here and reading our resource can start to be part of that solution towards reconciliation. And I think our resource starts to get people to think critically about that and how they can be part of that solution moving forward, and how we can think forward towards reconciliation, be part of that solution. We caused the problem, but we can certainly all be part of that solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very redemptive in theme. I really appreciate that. And the focus, as you said just previously, about critical thinking, that this is not something where we can make a workbook, ask you to memorize some stuff and fill in the blanks, that we need to ask questions, dig deeper, think through those things, and to be able to differentiate and discern. So critical thinking has just become a repetitive theme with many of these chats that I've had with our authors and publishers, and really a key part of what most parents want to make sure that their children have, especially in this digital age where, you can look up anything on the internet and it may or may not happen or be true. If you could probably find a very well-written essay on why all elephants are purple. That we need to be able to ask questions and think critically about things.
Yeah, we didn't write anything about that yet. The purple elephants.
No.
No, sorry.
We'll leave that for somebody else.
Okay.
Your resources are written for specific audiences. Like we have, as you said, the math that is provincially aligned to various different curriculums. Can you talk to me about why these ones do not have provincially aligned content?
Yeah, like Colin said, I mean, they're really written at a reading level, so we don't have them by grade either. And in fact, as I don't know if we've mentioned it yet, but some of the more ugly stories were not included in the more junior edition, just for the fact that some of the trauma or emotional issues might be not appropriate for the lower reading level. But there is no real set curriculum. There's no a yearly course that covers the full year. And so these there's like almost 40 individual units within each of those books. I think it's 36 in the junior one. But they're intended to kind of sprinkle in or be intermixed in your other learning. I can add that for BC, the Superintendent Association has endorsed the 8 to 12 edition as a good resource to meet graduation requirements for students who are now supposed to take a First Peoples course or Indigenous related courses for their graduation requirements. So the grade 8 to 12 book has been endorsed for that. So no official curriculum, but certainly a level of understanding is required to get all the credits you need for graduation.
And that's, I guess, part of it is that there isn't, like math, we have particular outcomes we know we need to meet in grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. Whereas these are not hard and fast particular outcomes that we're working towards with this curriculum. But as you said, in BC, one of the graduation requirements is an Indigenous studies
exactly
course, which is neat, which is a really neat thing. Anything to add to that before I switch back to math, because I'm kind of cherry picking here a little bit.
No, again, the whole purpose of the book was really to provide just an elevated understanding of all matters that involve our Indigenous history and the culture and its peoples. And I think that I certainly working through it had a new appreciation and love for Indigenous culture in Canada, and I'm able to see the beauty of it and not just look at the ugliness of it. And that to me was very wholesome and good. I believe that would be for anyone who engages with the content, especially if you do the coloring pages and the word search and some of the other neat activities that are in there.
Yeah, let me just flip. I think I've gone to a couple of pages, but I didn't show you the full gamut of what's here.
Yeah,
critical thinking questions throughout. I like that.
Yeah, and we also particularly like the word power, and you'll learn a lot about different Indigenous words and names and things like that. So it's very educational in a winsome way.
I know, in some way. Very good. And the nitty gritty of that, the rubber meets the road of that is you said probably about 30 to 40 lessons in each of those. So that's something that as a mom, if I was going to approach this with my students, I could sort of put that on the schedule or put that into our rotation to sort of spend some time about once a week going through one of these lessons. How long would it take me to go through that lesson with my children?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it could take anywhere from 10, 15 minutes, and depending on how much time you spend on the critical thinking and the conversation that is intended to, drive, it can take you an hour. But again, I think education around this subject matter is of real importance and very valuable.
And conversation is so valuable. I've said
Yep.
too many times recently, the value in our house of just the conversation over the things that we've learned, whether it's about math concepts or an episode in history or something that we've learned in geography. Even like one of my kids at the table the other day brought up, oh, well, there was this time in history when blah, 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 blah. And then we had a discussion about it. But also the things where we talk about social issues, where we talk about current events, where we talk about, like I have a pack of daughters. So we talk about like interpersonal issues and social issues and what happened when this person rubbed me the wrong way and how do I react next time? Those kinds of discussions are so valuable
Indeed.
in the growth of our children.
Indeed.
Yeah.
100%, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now I've got my Indigenous studies in my regular curriculum here. Tell me about the rubber meets the road with math. Dynamic math in particular is this flagship product that you have and where we have most of the books. Like we have oodles and oodles of these books on the shelf because we have a whole shelf for Western provinces and a whole shelf for BC in particular, one for Ontario, and then one for Atlantic provinces, and books for grades 3 to 12, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about that one, Colin?
Yeah, give me an overview.
Of the grade 9 book that you've got in front of you?
Give me an overview of how I use dynamic math in general. Like what does it look like for me as a mom? Do I need to teach this to my child? Do I just give it to them to read? Or what are the in-betweens? What are the other resources?
Well, any one of our dynamic math resources is written at a level that is appropriate to the student at that particular grade level. So a grade 9 book that you have on the screen right at the moment would be written for a student who is approximately 12 to 14 years old. We don't want the English language to get in the way of the learning of the mathematics. So any student at that grade level can probably pick it up and read it and use it on their own. It's not my recommendation, but it could actually be done that way. I'll give you a quick example here is that one of my roles here, other than being a publisher for Classroom Ready, is also to be a math teacher for the academic upgrading program at George Brown College. Last week, one of my students had to bring their grade 4 student in with them. So what did I do? I brought a grade 4 book in with me. And that student sat next to mom and started to work their way through that book on their own. I got stuck a couple of times and I gave them a quick nudge along the way. I go over there and give them a quick nudge, but they were actually able to read the resource and start to do the work on their own. If you, not my 100% recommendation, a student does it on their own. I think it's got to be an interaction between the parent and the student. And if as a parent, you are unsure of the math, because of the simplicity of the way that it is written, because of the simplicity of going from simplest to more difficult, you as a parent can read that resource easily, pick up the concepts again quite quickly. It may have been a long time since you've seen any of these math concepts. It may have been 15, 20, 25 years since you last saw trigonometry. But you can go into our resources. We will start very basic at the right triangle, and off we will go. And you as a parent can follow along with what these resources are designed to teach a student as well. And it was really kind of nice to be able to work through questions together with parent and child and come out successfully at the end. Yeah. We also have video support online for a lot of the questions that are in there.
Yes.
So there will be video support for some of the questions that are in these, and that video support is designed to find the trouble spots in the question and help the student get through that trouble spot as well.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. Now, homeschooling parents often feel very intimidated by math.
Absolutely.
And I can, my background is math. I have a degree in math. And so I'm always like glad to jump in. I know that most families are not all excited about trigonometry and calculus the way that this mom does. And my kids, like, they roll their eyes, Mom. But knowing that many families feel really intimidated by that, something that helps some families is having material that they can approach with their child. So it's not a curriculum where I have to take the teacher book and deliver content to my student so that they can approach that workbook. And in a dynamic math book, the content is there for both parent and student to approach together. So there's not the barrier that mom has to learn it first, then we can do it, but that either a student can sit down independently and work on it if they are of this like age and ability, or we can sit down and work on that together from the same book.
Yeah.
And the parent in that case becomes more of a facilitator, not a deliverer of content, but one who says, I'm gonna help you to find the answer. Let's read it together and understand it. Let's work through these examples. Let me check your work or your tests for you. If we're stuck on something, let's go find the answer together.
Yeah, I like the way you're putting that, Corey. I've used the phrase before. You're either the sage on the stage, or the guide on the side. And what we've designed here is more to be the guide on the side. It's not, I'm going to tell you what to do and you're going to parrot it back to me. That's not what this is designed to do. It is designed to be discovered, and the mathematics to be discovered together, to work on together, to feel that almost, what would I say, Harmen? Relief in, hey, I get this. Look at that, I get this. Imagine the excitement of, I've been struggling along and wow, I get this. And the more that relief comes along, the more confidence that student gets, the more joy the parents get out of seeing their child with confidence. And then they start approaching it with joy. I can't wait to get at that math. And when we put these together, and the way I do it in my classroom as well with the ACE students that I have is to help them discover what this math is, so that they can discover and use it for their own. I'm going to guide them. I'm not going to let them go off on the garden path, or I'm going to guide them to where they need to be, but they're going to do some of this work, or maybe do it together, and then discover what all of this is. Once they've discovered that, they own it. And using our material, they can own this. Like, I just go through our resources. You own the math. You don't understand it, you own it. And that's where I say the guide on the side kind of approach, where you're doing it together and going back and forth and even discussing it. You will discover it and you will own it at the end, and you will have all that relief, that confidence, that joy of doing math.
Exactly.
And I call those the aha moments when we see our students. And as homeschooling parents, we tend to want to not give that to somebody else, to another educator, but to be there with our kids when they go, oh, I get it.
Yeah,
that's a
usually
really
that's
fun
followed
thing
by,
to be a part of. Yeah.
and usually that's followed by, that's it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
You got it. Now we're going to
there's
transfer
more.
that knowledge all over the place, and you own it. You can move it and use it, and we're going to transfer this, and we're going to deepen your understanding, and you're going to take it, you're going to run with it.
Very neat. So talk to me about the video options that are available. I know that there's stuff in the works for our families to be able to access even more than you currently have, but currently we have resources available if moms and dads and students need more than just a workbook, because videos often help.
Yes. When we've started to put together our video lists for each of the resources, and I've used grades 3 to 10 right now, we've got 11 and 12.
4 to 10.
4 to 10. Sorry, I got my 7s and my 3s mixed up here today. I'm just a math guy.
Just numbers, Colin.
Yes, numbers. No,
I should have worn my husband's shirt. He says he has a shirt that I got him that says 5 out of 4 people struggle with math.
Yeah, I've got the same button on my fridge. No, that's it. I have it right there.
There you go. Perfect.
4 out of 3.
4 out of 3 people struggle with math. I have it on my board here. And I was one of them. I'll be honest, I was one of them. I failed grade 7 math and I failed grade 8 math. And it wasn't until I started making some of these connections that it actually helped me. And those connections are to be built into our resources. And one of those connections I didn't have, but you can have now, are some of the questions are actually answered in video form. And when we picked which questions that were going to be answered in video form, it was ones where there was going to be a spot that we thought the student would have trouble with. And we could then take a bit of a time out and say, let me walk you through what this actually is, with special emphasis on where our professionals and our educators have seen that trouble spot in the past. So we could get that clarified as quickly and as smoothly as possible, so that there's no real interruption in that mathematical continuum.
Yeah, and maybe if I could just add a little bit to that, is that, Corey, you mentioned earlier about math being like a building block. And so with access, subscription to the video library, you actually get access to all the videos. So if you're in grade 6, you can go back and watch grade 5 videos, or grade 4. Or if you really want to challenge yourself as a student, you want to look at, okay, what's ahead for me next year?
What's this leading up to?
Exactly. So you can see and we're almost 700 plus videos now in the entire range of the library. And the other thing I like, that's one of the new features we're introducing, you can actually search the database of videos by subject matter. So if you search for fractions, you'll get fractions across a number of grades. But you can also watch the video as a course, where it's completely linearly aligned to each unit in the book. So you have both options. So we think this is really another, for some, as you said, the book may be enough. For others, the book and the videos are going to be great. And the thing that we appreciate is that, you never know when you might want to review some of the videos, because tomorrow there's a test, or you're leading up to a test, or you need a little bit of extra help. Well, unlike a human being, a video is always accessible, right?
Yes.
So if you need that little bit of help, as Colin so eloquently describes it, you'll never get stuck, because those questions where the potential to be stuck or not quite understand something, there's a video for that.
I like that you've often used that term, to get unstuck, when we've talked about your resources.
Yep.
And so just back to sort of the nitty gritty of the videos, one thing that we have appreciated, and we use I kind of use the wording of video library and a subscription to a video library, because when you purchase your dynamic math book, that one's a 3, that's a little bit, we don't have a video for 3, but say I have videos for grades 4 to 10, and you'll be developing and releasing soon some for 11 and 12 as well, that if I get this book, I could just get the book, very economical, or I can get the book with the videos. And the nice thing is that then I have, for my family, access to that whole video library. And if my younger children need to get into some of the books, I only need to buy that library subscription once.
For one, exactly.
So it's nice to know, then I can say, hey, I've got 3 kids doing their dynamic math at various levels. I just need to invest once in that video library subscription, and it's going to be good for a year from the time that I start it.
Yep.
And in that way, like you said, I can pick through and say, gosh, this concept in grade 9 math, if it has to do with, factors and fractions and algebra, if that's confusing me, I could step back to some pre-algebra concept, or some operations with fractions in previous courses, and look at those and get some clarity, get some practice with that, and then come back to the content fresh and ready to tackle something.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to know, after the videos have been, or at least a parent or an educator wants to know, after the videos have been looked at, did you get it? And there's some extra practice there to help you say, did you get it? If you didn't get it, we got a little bit more work to do. And maybe we got to go back a little bit in the understanding and the foundational understanding that is there. But we've got a way to say, hey, we've looked at this video now. Did you get what it was trying to do? Great. Let's forge ahead. And keep learning some more math. If we didn't, let's fill that gap immediately, so that continuum is not broken as we continue to move forward.
And I like to always remind parents that sometimes we feel like if I present a concept, we try it, we should remember it and move on with it. But students aren't always ready for that, because if I think of math as a disciplinary skill, it's one where we have to build skill upon skill. We have to have regular practice. We have to have an incremental learning step by step. And it's kind of like learning to be a great soccer player or hockey player or a great pianist. I can see my students, I'm not the piano teacher, but I can see my students take a lesson from their teacher. And if she says, hold your hands in such a way and let's practice this piece, they're not going to just immediately know it. They have to have that practice and that repetition. And likewise with soccer, we don't just say, here's how you kick the ball and get it into the goal. Now, every time you kick it, you're going to get it into the goal. We have to be able to have that repetitive practice, and that not just learning having the knowledge, but also developing the skill. So having that ability to approach it from the book, approach it with videos in many ways, and to have that extra practice is super helpful.
Yeah, so, and lots of different entry levels and different approaches to doing that as well in these questions. So, if you're more of a visual and you look at our videos, that's great. And if you like to read, that's great as well. There'll be some activities in there that you can try on your own and see if you can discover it. That's great as well. There's different learning styles that are attached, or that, sorry, not attached, but that are included and embedded in all our resources. And we will hit the best learning style for you as an individual to help you get through those math concepts. But as you say, lots of practices in there to make sure that you can do the skill and the understanding that you've got and continue to move along that continuum.
Very good. A question just about the implementation of these resources. Sorry, and I'm still digesting some of these ideas that you've given us. Just implementing this, I know that across the curriculum and across years, like you've got resources here for grades 3 all the way up to grade 12. When I have a student working on those, I know that my grade 3 student does not need as much time doing their math. They don't have as much attention span. They don't have as much responsibility as my grade 9, 10, 11 student. But what would be a reasonable pace for the average student? What should I set aside? What kind of time should we set aside to work on our grade 9 math?
For the grade 9, as you said, I think the amount of time that you're going to spend each day is going to incrementally get larger as you go from grade 3 up through to grade 12. Because just the concepts are going to be a little bit more challenging and difficult, but you're more mature as you move upwards in the grade levels as well. When you're at the grade 3 level, my recommendation, this is just my recommendation here, is that you probably set aside 30 to 40 minutes to do math at those younger grades and gradually work your way up to probably spending 50 to 60 minutes at grade 11, grade 12 in some of those more difficult concepts and kind of gradually go from there. So if I'm saying 30 minutes at grade 3 and 50 to 60 minutes at grade 12, I'm probably in that 40 to 45 minute range when it comes to grade 9, a little bit depending on my province as well. The provinces approach grade 9 a little bit differently depending on the province that you're in. And grade 9 in Ontario has a brand new curriculum that just came out a couple of years ago. Anyway, where people are starting to just understand that curriculum a little bit more. You might spend a little bit more time if you're in Ontario, but really it is a kind of a continuum and a growth continuum from what I see and what I understand from those curriculum. And as I analyze the curriculum in each one of those provinces, which starts smaller at the younger grades and gradually get a little bit more as I move upwards into the higher grades.
Very good. Very good. And that falls in line with what we often recommend for students, knowing that homeschooled students kind of don't always have the same like measurement markers for what is appropriate level of breadth and depth and time spent in a course. And at that high school level, we'll often say a ministry mandated or ministry accredited course will usually aim at being 110 to 150 hours in a year, which if we kind of averaged that out over a school year would be about 45 minutes a day, or over a semester about an hour and a half a day. So that kind of falls within the lines of what is appropriate there.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about you're doing it every day for the school year, for the 9 months of the school year, for those 180 days of the school year. That would be my recommendation. There's also a little bit of time that you'd want, even a grade 3 student, to be working on their own a little bit, to do some of the work on their own, and they can do it right in our resource, and it's right there in front of them, and they never lose it, so it's always organized with them. Hard for an 8-year-old to lose a 350-page book. Very easy it's very easy for them to lose one piece of paper, right? So, that can just.
But we can. I can tell you, as a homeschooling mom, we can definitely lose those things still.
Oh yeah. I go to the mall, I can lose my car.
Yeah.
Upper Canada Mall. So it's I know how easy that can happen, but it's a lot less likely to happen when it's all bundled into one resource and you write right in it. And there's plenty of room for students to write as they get the writing gets smaller as they get older, as well as they mature.
And so that's something to note as well, that these are consumable resources. The next student will need the next book. They are very economical in comparison to many other resources that we have. So they are the choice of many of our budget-friendly or budget-conscious families. And we are totally all about helping families, knowing that a lot of homeschooling families have made significant financial sacrifices to be homeschooling. So this is one of those budget-friendly resources. Any last thoughts that you want to share with me, gentlemen? I've taken a lot of your time and I really appreciate that. You've shared that with me today. Any big
Yeah.
thoughts or nitty-gritty stuff that you want to tell me?
I just I thought I would just throw this in, and it's a bit of a plug for dynamic math. For example, as Colin mentioned just a few minutes ago, in Ontario, they just released what they refer to as grade 9 de-streamed, and that's a completely new curriculum and a new approach to grade 9. And to the best of my knowledge, we were certainly, dynamic math was the first one to make something available in a written textbook format. And we take great pride in the fact that the minute something is released, we are on top of it, and we're publishing it and making it available to parents and students. And so I would challenge any of our rivals or competitors to be able to say that they're teaching to the most recent curriculum. We can certainly say that with confidence. So that should give parents a lot of confidence that what's being taught or required to be taught in the classroom is exactly what our books are teaching.
And very relevant both for homeschooling families and for parents who are just concerned parents who want to help their students in a supplemental way, for students who are actually involved in the public school system or private schools, and or families who say, you know what, homeschooling's for a season for us. We do want to reintegrate them into classroom and make sure that they are following provincially aligned curriculum for these key subjects.
Yeah, no, anecdotally, I can tell you that we get a lot of recommendations from classroom teachers exactly for that. Is that our resource as a supplement comes highly recommended.
Yeah. We really like it for the quality of education students get that is also aligned with provincial standards. So thank you. Well, thank you for spending the time with me, gentlemen. I appreciate you taking these few minutes on a busy day and a busy season and sharing with our families so they can determine if these are the right resources for them.
It was our privilege and our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an honor and a privilege.